Hello, and welcome to KRAD COVID readings for Trek Tuesday. I'm Keith R.A. DeCandido, doing my bit to make the pandemic palatable, mostly by reading my writing. We continue with Invincible Book 1, the 7th installment in the Star Trek Starfleet Corps of Engineers series that ran from 2000 to 2007. This is a collaboration between myself and David Mack, and before I jump in with Part 3, I do want to mention there are references you've heard so far throughout this to the god Honig, which is the god of the Damiani species located on the planet Damiano. That's actually something from my very first work of published Trek fiction, which was the comic book Perchance to Dream, which was published by Wildstorm at the end of 1999 and beginning of 2000. And I created a three-gendered species called the Damiani, it was a next generation comic book. The Enterprise had to go for a inauguration ceremony, and much wackiness ensued. But I created the species for them, and the god that the Damiani worship is named Honig, which is named after two dear friends of mine, David and Alexandra Honigsberg. Married couple, actually a married couple where he was a rabbi and she was a priest. Yes, really. She's still a priest. David Honigsberg passed away in 2007, unfortunately. But both David and Alexandra and I were in a band together throughout the 1990s called the Don't Quit Your Day Job Players. And I specifically named a god after them, which they thought was really cool. Anyway, that's where Honig comes from. Moving on, here is Part 3 of Invincible, Book 1, by David Mack and Keith R.A. DeCandido. Transcript of Tricorder recording by Commander Sonya Gomez, Camp Hospital, Planet Sarindar, Stardate 53277.5. Okay, Rimlek, tell me exactly what happened. We were just sleeping. It all happened so fast. 1 minute we're sleeping, the next this thing is tearing us to shreds. We were just lying there sleeping, you know. Suddenly I hear this noise like something's tearing. It doesn't sound like anything you usually hear. So I wake up and just then this big, I don't know, claw thing was just ripping through the tent. It was terrible. What did it look like? It was like a whole bunch of crystal triangles. The head, all four claws, body, tail, they were all just pointed at the end and flat on top. A shii. No! Well, yes, it was like a shii, but Commander, this was twice the size of any shii I've ever seen. I've been on this planet since the project started a year ago, and I'm telling you that this was no shii. I've never seen anything this vicious. It tore through Salgood like he was nothing. It was terrible. And then it went after Kenny and smashed his skull like it was a piece of fruit, and then it sliced Mokay's head clean off. And then it turned to me, and I've never been so scared in my life. And it came after me, and those claws, and those claws, and those claws, and please don't hurt me, don't hurt me, don't hurt me! That's enough, Commander. He's going into shock, and Connie is already in coma from blood loss. Report, Doctor. Well, Salgood and Mokay are quite dead, assuming it is them, since they're both missing their heads. I'm going to go out on a limb and list the cause of death as decapitation. What can you tell me about the wounds? Aside from the fact that they were vicious, do they match what Rimlek said? Could a shii have caused this? One with a massive glandular disorder, perhaps. Doctor, I'm simply telling you what I saw. Yes, those wounds could have been made by a shii, but only one that was several times larger than any one that has ever been reported. I know whereof I speak, Commander. The shii and other silicon-based life on this planet are my specialty, and I can assure you, this is not a shii found in nature. It's a monster shii, then. Oh, come on, Kajana. That's what the legends say, yes? I wouldn't know. I don't pay attention to children's stories. Obviously, Doctor, they are not stories. We need to kill this thing. Don't be ridiculous. Tell me, Doctor, are there any shii on any other world besides this one? No. And when was the last time that anyone did an anthropological survey of this world prior to the start of this project? Well, it's been about 500 years. And how detailed was that survey? Well, look, I'm telling you that you're telling me that your expertise is at least 500 years out of date. which means it's quite possible that this is a normal evolutionary step for the shii. We still need to hunt it down. Why? It attacked for no reason. We don't know that. Rimlik was asleep when it attacked, and shii generally only attack when they're provoked. For all we know, Salgud or Moke or Kani did something to provoke it. They also attack for sustenance. Well, that wouldn't matter. They could no more consume carbon-based life for food than you and I could have a spike in flame gem for lunch. So are you saying we do nothing? Of course not. But we don't need to hunt it down. We'll just improve our defenses. This encampment doesn't have any kind of protection against local fauna attacking, mainly because nobody expected it to. Have the rest of Salgud's detail construct a fence around the perimeter. That will put us behind schedule again. That detail's already lost 4 people. They were going to be behind schedule anyhow. And I'd rather play it safe in case this shii wants to finish the job. Make sure the fence is electrified. This is a mistake, Commander. If you two are finished posturing at each other, would you mind getting out of my hospital and letting my patients rest? Thank you. Letter from Kajana on Sarindar to Rivodro on Nalor. 5th day of Sendrak, 23rd year of Tog. My son. One of your mothers told me in her last letter that you are walking and talking now. This is good. I am writing this letter to you so you know what it is that your father is doing away from you in this formative time of your life. My work has taken me to the cursed planet of Sarindar. Perhaps your mothers have told you stories of Sarindar. Well, they are all true. This is an evil place. Or at least it was. Our government did not think it was ever a cursed land, but that those were simply stories to frighten children such as yourself. They told us that we were to come to this home of evil and construct machines that will mine the planet. There is an element here that is called Shimerium. Supposedly harvesting this element will make our government rich. I suppose that is so, but I doubt that I will see any of those riches. Our wages are above standard, but nothing compared to what the government will reap from our labors. That is, it seems, the way of things, and it is worth it perhaps to make sure that you and all your brothers and sisters have a better life. It has been worth it for other reasons, too. I have seen things that I thought I would never live to see. When I was your age, my father and mothers told me many stories to both frighten and excite me. No doubt your mothers are doing likewise. Perhaps they have told you of the monster shii, or of the Sanyul that can lift curses and bring the light. I have seen both these things. In order to explain how I have seen these things, I must first tell you about Commander Gomez. She was sent by the Federation. I'm sure you've heard stories about them, too, the evil empire who fought us 3 ages ago and demolished our fleet. To be honest, my son, when I heard that they were sending someone from that foul nation, I almost quit. I only did not because I knew I would be blacklisted from this kind of work. Not only would the government never hire me, but neither would anyone else. I have my family to think of, so I stayed. Our last supervisor was a good man by the name of Nalag. Well, at least he was a good man when he first came here. He had every intention of making this project work. He was a sensible man who had a good plan for the machine we are building. He was also a calm, well-adjusted man who always kept his beard short and neatly braided. By the time he quit, he was a wreck. He screamed constantly, his beard had become a long, tangled mess that he didn't even bother to braid. He talked to himself. Sarindar had destroyed him. I feared that it would destroy all of us. And then the government informed us that Nalag would be replaced by someone from the Federation. Worse, a woman from the Federation. For a woman to supervise a man's work is absurd. But I remembered you, my son, and the rest of the family, and I persevered. When Commander Gomez arrived, she immediately set about destroying Nalag's work. This offended me even more than her presence. She spit on the work of a good man. It was not Nalag's fault that this place is cursed, and his methods were good and fair. Then she did something truly astonishing. She fixed the load lifters. You see, my son, the load lifters were the true embodiment of the curse of Sarindar. They would not work. We tried everything we could to fix them, but still, they would not work. The woman had not been here an entire day before she solved the problem of the load lifters. Since she worked her magic, they have consistently worked. My assistant, Jiro, called her Sanyul after that, and I was half tempted to go along with it. But I could not. She was still a woman. still from the Federation, and still spitting on the memory of the noble Nalag. This was made worse when she tried to use her Federation trickery on the workers, who staged a simple protest. All that, however, changed today. I know what you are thinking right now. When is he going to tell me about the monster shii? Patience, my son. 2 days ago, 4 men were attacked in their sleep by a creature that one of them described as a monster shii. Yes, that's right. It is real. I can see your mothers now. They're all probably reading this and making disapproving sounds about how Kajana is filling his son's head with insane stories. And perhaps the 2 men who survived were telling absurd tales about the creature that wounded them and killed their comrades. Yes, my son, the creature killed them. I know this is harsh, but there is nothing to be gained by hiding behind euphemisms. 2 of my men were dead. 2 others badly injured. And the injured ones claimed it was a monster shii. In any case, I soon learned the truth. Either way, though, whether it was truly a monster shii or simply some other vicious animal, I knew we had to hunt the creature down. Commander Gomez said no to that, said to simply construct an electrified fence, which we did. But I knew that it would not be enough. I assumed that Commander Gomez, being only a woman, did not understand these things. Today, Commander Gomez and I were discussing some aspect of the work when we heard a loud noise. We ran to the source of the noise, which was on the perimeter near the electric fence we had built. The first thing we saw that the fence itself had been damaged, broken by something that had ripped through it. There were pieces of the fence's structure inside the encampment, meaning that whoever broke the fence did so by coming in from the outside. Since no one was allowed outside the camp without permission, and they could not break this rule without electrocuting themselves, since only Commander Gomez and I held the keys to the fence, and since no one had asked for that permission, we knew that it was no member of the workforce who had done this. Not that any of us could and live. I told Commander Gomez that the monster had returned. She scoffed. At the time, I believed it was because she was only a woman and did not know better. Then we saw it. The monster shii is truly as the legends have said. It looks just like a shii, only bigger. It actually looks much like a man. Smooth head and pointed chin, though its chin is mineral rather than the result of a beard. Only the top of the head is flatter. And of course, it is made of crystal and walks on 4 legs. And those legs are remarkably similar in shape to the heads. The legs and the chin are razor sharp. The one we saw was also stained blue with the blood of a man. We saw the man too, or at least his body, which lay on the ground under the monster. After a moment, I saw his head, tucked in between the monster's hind leg and rear shoulder. It was Kelrek. He was only 3 scars old, a mere youth. As foreman, I had been issued a sonic pistol. I did not hesitate to use it, but even as I unholstered the weapon, the monster turned to run away. I fired, but missed. The sonic beam ripped through one of the tents instead. However, as the creature turned, I saw that it was bleeding. A silvery substance dripped from a gash in its side. I tried to fire again, but it seemed to move at warp speed. Commander Gomez ran after it, as if that would do some good. Whereas I had unholstered my weapon, she had taken out her scanning device. She ran, continuing to look down at her scanner. We reached the fence, at which point she stopped. The monster had gone through the same way it came, apparently unbothered by the electricity. We were not so fortunate. The charge from the fence was arcing all over, and we had to keep our distance. Commander Gomez deactivated the fence, then she turned to look at me. She then said 3 words I never expected to hear her say to me. You were right. About what? Forming a search party. There's no way anyone could have provoked that thing in such a way that it would break through the fence and make a beeline for Kelrek like that. We've got to track it down. She put her scanner away. I was hoping to get some reading on the thing, but the tricorder is useless with all this chimerium around. We have a trail to follow, I said, pointing at the creature's blood trail. She looked down at the silvery blood in surprise, then smiled. Good catch. All right, put a detail together, but one thing, Kajana. I'm in charge of this party. We'll issue weapons to everyone, but nobody fires without my direct order. Understood? Commander, understood! In fact, I did not understand, but I gave in and nodded my assent, if not my approval. My opinion of her tactics did not improve when she spoke to the hastily assembled hunting party several minutes later. I want to make something very clear. This is not a hunting party. It's a search party. We know very little about this thing. Federation history is replete with encounters with life forms that we thought were utterly hostile and became good friends. ranging from the Klingons, whom we know to be sentient, to the Horda, whom we had thought of just as simple animals. Now, it's possible that this too is just a nasty animal. It's also possible that we provoked it in some way. We will defend ourselves if we have to, but we are not going to hunt this creature down. For now, my main concern is to find the creature, retrieve the heads of the people it's killed, and learn more about it. One of the party, an Asina named Duren, muttered under his breath, "And how is she supposed to do that?" People from the Federation apparently have very good hearing, because she replied to that even though she was not meant to hear. "We won't know until we make the attempt." "Right," Duren said louder this time. "I forgot. You're Starfleet. You can do anything." Commander Gomez looked up and down the line of men she was leading. "No one is to fire their weapons without my authorization. Anyone who does will be confined in the Culloden until the next window and shipped out of here. Is that understood?" That surprised me. The threat was a very serious one. To lose this work would mean sacrificing great wages, and also virtually guaranteeing that the person in question would never work for the government again. And only the government pays this well. After her speech, we marched out of the camp, following the trail of silver blood. There were 9 of us, for luck. This is an ugly, unpleasant world. There is no shading here. It is all glare and blinding light. The plants all have sharp edges, and the ground is difficult to walk on. Aside from the occasional burst if the suns reflect the right way, there is no color here. It is bland and lifeless. No less than one would expect from a place so evil. The blood trail became harder to follow after a certain amount of time, but the animals seemed to be going in a straight line, which we followed. Before long, the sun started to set. Commander Gomez led the way. Her weapon had a lamp attached to it, which became our beacon. Our own lights were much poorer, and since I brought up the rear of our search party, I got the least benefit from that light. Only Commander Gomez had her weapon unholstered at her order, and no one was willing to contravene an order that came with such potentially disastrous consequences. We saw many creatures on the way. Some of them even normal shii. Once, Duren started at the sight of one, thinking it was the monster, and reached for his weapon. Before he could, though, the shii itself ran off. I assured him that that was not it. It was far too small. This did not stop Duren from panicking once again when we happened upon a pride of shii, but they ignored us. All of them were fairly diminutive, nothing at all like the monster I saw in the camp. Then we came to the cave. Commander Gomez shone her light into the cave, and then gasped. Thinking that we would never get a coherent answer out of her, I ran to the front to see what she saw. What I saw were skulls. The skulls of animals, the skulls of men. Hundreds of skulls. As repellent as the sight was, the smell was worse. In the camp every day are the mixed smells of food, the chemicals from the cooking units and the lamps, and the various materials used for the machines we construct. The smells of life. When we left camp, those smells dissipated to be replaced by nothing, for just as there is no color, there is no odor to this world either. Nothing to indicate that anything worthwhile has ever come here. It is as sterile and antiseptic as that idiot Galamite wishes his hospital was. But the cave... I hope, my son, that you live a long and fruitful life. And I hope you never have the smell of death invade your nostrils the way it did for me in that cave today. Commander Gomez's lamp was insufficient to see all the way into the cave, so I could not begin to describe how many skulls were actually present. But I did know one thing. Some of them were very old indeed. There was one head I saw that was not a mere skull, but in fact a head with a face still attached, belonging to Kelric. It had been placed unceremoniously in a pile of skulls, no more or less important than any of the other hundreds of trophies this abomination had collected. Immediately the talking began. Everyone in the party wanted the creature dead. Some even unholstered their weapons. "Put those weapons away!" Gomez barked. "I told you..." I was about to interrupt her. I was going to tell her that she was a fool. I was going to tell her that we needed to destroy this creature now. I was going to tell her that if she did not authorize us to eliminate this monster, I would order the men to do it myself and damn the consequences. I was going to tell her that I didn't care what it took. I would see this abomination, who would display the heads of men in such a manner, eliminated. I was going to tell her that anyone who did not see things this way was a fool. I did not get the chance to say any of those things, because that is when the monster shii attacked. I cannot say where the creature came from. All I know is that one moment I was standing before Commander Gomez, preparing to speak my mind to her, and the next I was diving for cover as a crystalline demon leapt into our midst. After rolling on the ground for several moments, I looked up to see Jiro flailing blindly at the monster, several other men running away from it, and Commander Gomez holding her ground. The monster leapt into the air and then headed straight for Commander Gomez. She still stood her ground, even as I cried out, "Commander, duck!" Instead, she fired her weapon. Then she ducked. Unfortunately, she only had put the weapon on its lowest setting. Equally unfortunately, she did not duck fast enough. The creature sliced at her left arm, tearing her uniform and her skin. To my amazement, Commander Gomez's blood was red. For some reason, I assumed that her blood would be a more normal blue color. Perhaps all her people have blood like that. Or perhaps she is special. The creature came at her again. Though she lay on the ground, though one arm was injured, she managed to change the setting on her rifle and fire it. Waves of sonic energy battered the monster in midair. It twirled around in mid-leap and spun like a head ball being intercepted. It fell to the hard ground just as I had when I had first attacked. Unlike me, it did not get back up. "Is it dead?" Duran asked. "Looks like it is," Gomez said. "Damn it." Jiro was chittering madly. "Didn't I tell you all? Have I not been saying all along that she is the Sanyul? This proves it. She has destroyed the monster shii." If I had not seen it with my own eyes, I would have called Jiro a fool. But I had seen it. Commander Gomez is the Sanyul. She has taken the curse of this evil place and removed it. "Hail to the Sanyul!" Jiro cried, lifting his 4 front legs into the air. The Nalori men did likewise with their arms, as did the Osina with their legs. Calway, the lone cubby in the party, waved his flippers. Regardless of their gestures, they all repeated Jiro's cry. "Hail to the Sanyul!" It took me a moment, but I joined in the cry. Because, my son, I had seen it. In all the stories, there is one constant. None can kill the monster shii. Yet she did. Sanyul killed it. We marched triumphantly back to the camp. By the time we arrived, it was completely dark, but a large number of men, including the Bolian zealot Zilder, were waiting for us at the entryway. 4 of the men carried the body of the monster back. As soon as he saw that, the Bolian cried out, "They have killed it!" Cheers erupted from the assembled men. I wanted to display the monster's corpse on the fence as a testament to victory, and said so as we came into the adulation of the other workers. "No," Sanyul said. "Bring it to the hospital. I want Dr. Dolan to conduct an autopsy." "That fool wouldn't know which end to cut open," Calway said, in which many laughed. Sanyul even smiled at that. "Maybe, but he's supposed to be an expert on silicon-based life, and I want to know where this thing came from." I walked up to her as the 4 men continued toward the hospital, and the remaining 3 told the others of our adventures. "We know where it came from, Sanyul. Oh, don't tell me you're going to start calling me that, too." Bowing my head respectfully, I said, "If you do not wish to be called that, I don't," she said quickly. "In any case, Commander, it is a monster shii. It came, presumably, from other shii." "Maybe. But Dolan was right about one thing. It's a lot bigger than any of the other shii that we saw on the way out there. Or the ones I saw from orbit, for that matter. It might be some kind of mutation or something else. I want to know what." She took a deep breath. "In the meantime, I think we've all earned a night off. First thing in the morning, I want to work out a new schedule with you and Jiro. With that thing dead, we should be able to get back on track." "Of course, Commander." "Meanwhile, I'm going to follow the corpse to the hospital and get this looked at." She pointed at her injured arm. As she walked toward the Galamite's chamber of horrors, I called after her, "Commander! If you wish. Would you join us?" She stopped, turned, and frowned at me. "Join you where?" "Outside my tent. I intend to celebrate our victory with a bottle of Saurian brandy that Entor thinks he's been keeping secret. I would be honored if the Sanyul would join us." She sighed. "I'm not the Sanyul." Then she smiled. "But I'd be equally honored to join you. Thank you, Kajana." And she did join us. We drank long into the night. Mostly Sanyul listened as we regaled each other with stories. Some of them were even true, though they were less so the more we drank. It was very good Saurian brandy, and Entor only sulked for a little while when I told him to bring it out. Ah, but your mothers are no doubt distressed at this drinking and carousing so soon after talking of fighting and death. But a victory should be celebrated. So should a miracle. And Commander Sonya Gomez, the Sanyul, is most definitely a miracle. Thanks to her, I should be home to see you soon, my son. I look forward to it. With all the love I have, your father, Kajana. To be continued next week. Thank you very much for watching. Please, if you could see your way fit to supporting my Patreon, I've got lots of cool stuff on there. TV reviews, movie reviews, cat pictures, excerpts from my works in progress, vignettes featuring my original characters, and first looks at my first draft. All those are separate tiers, but they're cumulative, so the more you pay, the more of those tiers you get. The most expensive tier is $20 a month, that's it. And you can, for as little as $1 a month, you can get monthly movie reviews, which would still be nifty and still help me out. So please, support the arts. Support my Patreon. Please. Also, you can find me online at DeCandido.net. Read my blog at DeCandido.wordpress.com. And, again, support my Patreon. Patreon.com/KRAD, K-R-A-D. Thank you very much. Please stay safe, and I'll see you next week.